Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Gendera. I'm Geraldine, and this is a warning video for anybody that has been affected by the storms and the floods in Queensland or in Australia, actually, for that matter, or probably anywhere, if you're having to deal with an insurance company or a government agency for that matter. It is vitally important that you take note of absolutely every interaction you have with your insurance company. Keep a journal of what you say to them, what they say to you. Get them to give you everything in writing as to what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. Get everything written down. Don't take anything as word as they say it on the phone, because they can deny it. And they can say, oh no, that didn't happen. The reason I give this warning is experience. And I kept reasonable records. I've actually got a YouTube channel with the whole house saga. I'll leave a link up there for that. And I'll leave a link in the description. We've been battling our insurance company on, had four claims. Like I say it's 4 claims. There were 4 different weather events. There was a storm in 2020 in December. Then there was flooding in December of 2021. And then we had floods in May in 2022 and floods in February and May in 2022. Sorry, I think I mixed those up. Anyway, so 4 weather events. RACQ are declining the May flood, saying that it's the same as the February flood. Very different event. In fact, the water came in different ways. In February, the water came in from that way. In May, the water came in from that way. Completely different. But February 2022, I ring them up and I tell them my house is flooding, and they go, okay, we'll authorize you to have emergency accommodation. We will pay for that. And we had already been in emergency accommodation for 6 months, I think it was, because of mold damage from the 2020 storm, which is why I have no ceiling. I have no carpets. Still not fixed. That room doesn't even have walls, but that's another story completely. It is vitally, vitally important that you track every single little piece of information that they tell you, because they told me that they were going to give me emergency accommodation funding for the February floods. Then when it flooded again in May, they were going to increase my emergency accommodation, because it was a second event. Then a few months later after that, they actually say, oh no, the May flood is part of the February flood, so it doesn't count. You don't get any extra funding for that. Oh, and they'd taken away a whole heap of content, a whole heap of flood damage content in February, and then they came back again and they took some more just before the May floods, and then there was more that needed to be taken away, and they never came back for it because May flood didn't happen, according to them. Of course, now they're trying to say that the February flood didn't even happen because the weather station data that they got, which was from an inactive weather station, said that it didn't rain in February. And it didn't rain in February 2019. It inundated in February 2022. But they're not taking into account the fact that they're reading incorrect data. And in, I think it was September, I think it was, I had another phone call with them. Like, I've been calling them the whole time through this, trying to get information, trying to get things sorted, trying to get balls rolling, trying to get some sort of solution to the problem. And in September, they said, look, we're not going to cover you for the building damage. Your concrete slab in your carport is the same height as the concrete in the laundry and on that side of the house. There is no step up. It's against building codes. You're not covered. So they were declining the building, but they were going to cover the content still. And I could accept that. I could accept that, because at this point we really need to demolish this building and rebuild. It is not financially viable to repair this building any further. It needs to be, we need to rebuild another house. So I'm looking for whatever money I can get to be able to do that. Hence the reason why the house is still in a fairly disheveled and unrepaired state, because we just can't afford to repair it and build another house. And this is just not economical to repair. So they tell me in September that they're going to cover me for the contents, not for the building. So I go about and I start finding all of the content that got damaged, found anything extra that had been left behind, itemised it, was going through pricing it out. And then I get another phone call, I think it was in November, telling me that they were declining the claim completely. As you can imagine, I was devastated. One thing this whole event has shown me is that I had way too much faith and confidence in insurance companies. Yeah. So yes, that in itself is a big problem. But then, so my options then was to actually take the complaint to AFCA, which is the Australian Financial Commission and Assurances Ombudsman for the financial industry. So I took my complaint to AFCA, and RACQ submitted a whole heap of information. AFCA didn't make it clear that how I was supposed to actually respond to anything. They really, and I tried to, I had a community service person that was offering to help, and AFCA refused to allow them to have any access to the information or to help at all. And in this time period, I actually was having some really serious problems with my mental health. As you can imagine, with all the stress of everything that's going on, I had some severe anxiety. I was starting to stutter. Most of that started from the car accident, the stuttering. And the anxiety was just getting to the point where I couldn't cope. I'd gone into a complete mental shutdown, which actually led to me getting diagnosed with autism, which is something that I've always had, but I was managing. I didn't realise that I was autistic. I knew I was different. I knew I was unique. I didn't realise that I actually had autism, and did not realise that I actually did need some help. I mean, I knew I needed help, but I didn't realise the extent to it. And I was managing mostly. But with the anxiety and the stress and all of this happening with the house, it just put too much pressure on my system. And I shut down. I completely shut down. And that was half the reason why I didn't find the mold in the first place. And November last year, so around the time when they told me that when the insurance company told me that they were declining the claim completely. That was around the time that I got the diagnosis for the autism and anxiety. So autism level 1, level 2, depending on comorbidities. That alone has actually been really helpful, having that diagnosis, because it's helping me to understand me. And it's helping me to understand why I get sensory overload, what goes on when I get migraines, why I'm affected by so many things that I am. And yes, anyway, trying to get this thinking through process, but it is really, really, and I'm way too trusting, and that's half of the reason why I'm having a problem with RACQ, because I did not take down no notes as much as I should have. I took some, but I didn't take enough. And you really need to make sure you keep notes on everything. Everything. Don't trust that they're going to do the right thing, because they probably won't. It's not a nice way to live, being skeptical of everything, but when you're dealing with insurance companies, you have to. I think the thing I'm most disappointed about with AFCA is that I didn't even get a chance to present any information. They just took everything that RSEQ said at face value and completely ignored what I said. Even to the point where I pointed out to them that they were using an inactive weather station. They still told me that the weather station said there was no rain. So, I mean, I've got videos with water going through my legs. And they're telling me that there was no rain. My neighbours have got water overflowing their dams, and they're telling me we had no rain. Most of southeast Queensland was flood affected, and they're telling me that there was no rain. Keep note of everything. So that's my big warning to you. And don't expect quick fixes. And make sure you get everything written down. Because now RSEQ are going, no, we're not going to cover you for this, we're not going to cover you for that, we're not giving you anything. Even though they'd previously told me that they were. So please share this video far and wide, especially for anyone that's been flood affected. It is really, really important. Make sure you take notes, because otherwise you could end up with a similar problem to what we've got. At the moment, I'm autistic. I mean, I was already autistic, but now I'm not coping with the autism. The stress levels are just too high. My anxiety levels I am now on medication for. I've now got Graves' disease, which is brought on by stress. It's an autoimmune disease where your immune system tells your thyroid to produce more thyroid hormone, and it also causes swelling behind the eyes, so I got double vision, hence the reason why my eyes are funny. So it is really, really important to make sure that you keep track of all of this information and make sure that you get the support you need. I mean, I've got counsellors, I've got psychologists, and they're helping, and I've got the medication and it's helping. But when you're going through challenges, reach out for help. I've still got a few more options with fighting the insurance company. I'm deciding whether or not to, whether it's worth it, because it could mean that we don't get any help from the Resilient Home Fund, which would be bad. I've still got to make a decision on that. Well, Gavin and I need to make a decision on that, as we are joint owners of the property. But yes, keep track of all your information. And know that in this world you will have troubles, but God has overcome the world. And true peace is being able to find peace within the mess. And that is one thing that I have gotten better at. I still have my bad days. And yesterday, because just after Christmas I got the email from AFCA saying that they weren't going to get make the insurance company pay anything. But then they said it did look like I could get my contents covered. So I went through and finished itemising all of that and sent that through to RSEQ, and I got the email yesterday from RSEQ telling me, no, we're not going to give you any of the cover any of the content. So that smashed me around for a while yesterday. But most of the time, I can still find peace in this mess. I can still find joy, because the joy of the Lord is my strength. He's my comfort. And I know that all things work together for good for those that are called according to his purpose. And I know that he has a plan and a purpose for my life. And I have a future and a hope. And I will not let go of that. And I hope that when you go through struggles and trials like this, that you have a hope like that too. That you have something you can turn to, that can be your strength when all other sources fail. And I thought I had that until RSEQ declined the claim back in September, November last year. I thought I did still have my faith in God with that, but I didn't. My faith was in the insurance company that they were going to cover us, and it got smashed. So this has shown me that where my faith really, truly was. And now I'm putting my faith where it truly does belong. And I'm finding the peace in the storm. And I'm finding the calm in the storm. I'm finding the joy in the mess. I'm finding ways to find hope where there is no hope. Finding light where there is no light. And knowing that Jesus is the light of the world and he came to save and restore. And regardless of whether I've got a mansion to live in or I'm living in a broken hovel, there are things to be grateful for. I mean, my grass is growing like nobody's business at the moment. But that's because, I mean, it's also really hot and humid, hence the sweat, which is making the grass grow. So be able to find that. Make sure you've got deep, deep roots. And that's half the reason why I started my t-shirt and apparel and mug design stuff is I'm starting to put some of these things that have given me courage and hope onto posters and clocks and mugs and cushions and curtains and shirts and all sorts of things to encourage people so that they can encourage themselves and encourage others just by walking down the street and wearing a t-shirt that says, "Dare to be you." Or, "The enemy thought he won until I'd said amen." He has the last word. He is our Saviour. This is not my home. I have an eternal home in heaven with Jesus, and that is where my hope lies. That even if I have a mess and a disaster here, I will still praise him, and I will still love him, and I'll keep going. So please share this video out so that people that have been affected by storms and floods and having to deal with insurance know that they have to keep track of everything. Keep a file. Keep a book. Have a physical written book. Don't just have it in your phone. Have a physical written book as well as stuff on your phone. You need to have it in at least 3 places because you might lose 2 of them, especially if they're digital. But yeah, I hope you found this helpful, and I hope that some good can come out of the mess that we're in, because that gives me hope. Knowing that I can help encourage somebody else. Knowing that this mess isn't for nothing. Knowing that there is good that'll come out of it. The other thing is there are 2 things that you know you need to remind yourself you are not alone. And even if you are physically alone, you don't have somebody to do things with, you don't have a partner, you don't have family, you don't have friends, which you really do need to work on building a community if that's the case. You're not alone. And even if you don't have friends, family, or community, you're still not alone because God is always with you. Even if you don't acknowledge him, he knows you and he's waiting for you to call out to him. And other than that, there are others that are going through the same situation that you are, or something similar, or someone has been through something similar. And one thing that's really been encouraging to me is the story of Job in the Bible. The book of Job is just an endless source of encouragement to me. It really is. And the other one is where Paul was going. He had a thorn in his side and he prayed that God removed it 3 times. And God said, "My grace is sufficient." And that's the big thing. God's grace is sufficient. We don't need the things and the stuff. Don't collect for yourself things that are going to moth, and moths can eat and rust can corrupt. Lay up for yourself treasure in heaven. And remember, you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. Bless you. You have a great day. And thank you for cheering me up. Catch you in the comments section.